Donnell here. So excited to be with you today. How are you guys doing? And I wanted to talk to you today about a few different things, but the main thing is how you can't outrun yourself. I think sometimes there's this illusion that we can get to where we want to go without dealing with the hard stuff. And so I want to talk to you about that today. And just if you're new to me, I've been a healer for 20 years and I have many different ways and modalities and certifications and all different things. But at the end of the day, I specialize in sustainable transformation that is through subconscious and somatic work. And I love what I do. So when I speak to you about these topics, it's coming from that reference of working with thousands of people, doing so many healing sessions and doing transformational mentorship and different coaching containers that I have. And I recently had this thought that came through this last weekend for me. And it was how no matter how hard we want to push, no matter how much we want to force in life, we just can't outrun ourselves. And it shows up when you're probably feeling in your life like things aren't working out. You might feel stuck, like you can't move forward. You can't see the forest for the trees. There's a lack of clarity. There's a lot of confusion. Your body may feel like it's in almost like a breakdown mode and even brain fog. And typically, when all of these things happen, it's because you're about to go through a major transformation, a major breakthrough. But the problem is, it's so uncomfortable to go through something like this that your tolerance to deal with the pain you might want to bypass it or not deal with it because we've been taught, I know I have, I'll speak for myself, but a lot of my clients have been taught that when something challenging happens, when there's an obstacle, just force your way through it, get through it, don't think negatively. And boy, oh boy, have I had to do so much reprogramming on myself around this whole thing because obviously you need to feel your feelings. Goes without saying, feel your feelings. And it's not about letting your feelings bowl you over. And I would almost imagine our feeling state sometimes as the ocean where it ebbs and flows, and sometimes it's low tide, sometimes it's high tide, and sometimes it's like a huge wave that comes over and it could just knock us down. And our job is to eventually have emotional mastery, to work with our feeling state and be able to honor it, but also be able to kind of shift perspective after a given amount of time so that you can get on with your life. And I don't believe in spiritual bypassing. I really believe at honoring the isness of our life. Like wherever you are at, whatever is happening right now is happening for a really good reason because that's where you're supposed to be. So if you could just accept that, you are exactly where you're meant to be, even if things are sucking right now, even if it's not going the way that you want. Things come to a halt, things stop working when they're meant to stop working. If you're showing up and you're doing, your day-to-day stuff and it's not moving you forward the way that you desire, it's because you're being redirected. And maybe a while back you asked to switch into a higher octave of your life. Maybe you said, I want to elevate my finances or elevate my relationships. I want my dream relationship. Whatever it is you asked for, once you said that and you forgot, you're just thinking, I just want to manifest this. We forget that the universe works in such a way that it wants to prepare you to be the vibrational match to what you want to receive. So you're going along your merry way, and all of a sudden it's all these obstacles and challenges, and then you start to, feel pain and start to actually be suffering, and then you forget who you are and why you're going through these things. And I had this happen to me last weekend where I'd been in such a deep cycle of transformation, and it got to be so intense for me because it actually wasn't just a mental or emotional thing. It became very physical for me, where my arm, I've had to get treatments for it. I hurt my back, and then it went into my arm, and which is it's been really challenging, and it slowed me down to a snail's crawl. It felt like it was just like I was moving along at a clip that I wanted to be, and then I I was already facing the fact that some things weren't working in my life, and my circumstances are a little different in the sense that I just moved to a new city, and I was essentially was starting my entire life over. And what was really fascinating is I think that because I was already emotionally going through some things, and then when the physical thing came, it felt like the universe just gave me this big stop. Who goes there? What are you doing? Why do you keep trying to do things like you used to do? And here's where I was at. And maybe this will relate to you, especially for my female entrepreneurs, maybe moms that are trying to do it all. I have been suspect of that. I've tried, and in my past, what would typically happen is if something wasn't working for me, I would force my way in and figure out something. I'd problem solve and be like, okay. And I'm not saying that that isn't a wonderful tactic to a degree, to a degree. The way I was always operating in my reality, this is just my personality, is that if I wanted something bad enough, I would make it. I would just force it to happen. Never really checking in if it was for my best and highest good, if it was coming from ego, what was going to be the aftermath of once I get the thing. And so I was pushing, pushing, pushing. And I had these really interesting circumstances that before I moved to, I now live in Boise, Idaho. Before I moved here, I was in a relationship with somebody that was extremely challenging. I have two daughters, and it's their father. And we were in a relationship for 8.5 years. And I went through a lot. I'm not going to get into all the details, but let's just say it was an emotionally challenging relationship. And so I was in that. And then I subsequently left that relationship. And then we were always in court going back and forth about custody and all these things. So for a good 10-year period of time, I was in my forced fight. Like I was forcing myself to like find the positive, to like get through my day to day, to be in a very difficult and challenging relationship, and not stopping long enough to recognize what wasn't working out, because I would just be like, nope, keep going, keep going, keep going. And I love that fight in me that is willing to continue to show up. But I ignored a lot of the red flags from the universe. And I'm sure there's been times that you've done that in a relationship, in your job, where you're operating from this program of, I just need to make this work. And if I were to stop and slow down enough to recognize it's not working, then there's probably a lot of other things that I'm going to have to recognize as well. And so at that time in my life, I wasn't willing. I was just trying to get through because I was in survival, and there's just so much happening. I had two little, girls that were just, I'm starting out my business as an entrepreneur. This is over 10 years ago. I've been doing healing work for 20 years, but I really went full time about 10 years ago. So when I moved through that last, this kind of 10-year cycle, if you will, where I was fighting, pushing, all actually to get here and start my new life with my current fiance, and our blending our families together, I started to see this pattern. And the only way I saw it, you guys, was because I had to slow down, because I kept trying to outrun myself. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna keep doing this. And oh, if this doesn't work, I'm gonna try this. And it was almost like I'm like juggling a million things. Like, okay, I can, to the point where it became comical, where nothing was working in a way. It was like, sit your ass down, girl, and like stop. And I couldn't figure out, why was the universe giving me the palm? Like, why was it, why? What did I do wrong? And it wasn't that I did anything wrong. It was that when we want to start a new life and up level and become our future self, you cannot move forward and do things from the old energetic, the old way. And I just explained to you this 10-year energetic that I was in, that probably even went all the way back. Of course, it went back to my childhood, but we don't need to get into that because that would take forever. So when I started to realize that the way I was approaching my life through my energy, through my mindset, through my perspective, through my love story with myself, it was going to build more of the same of what I had in the past if I didn't drop the fight, if I didn't drop the force. Because there is something really amazing beyond force, and that is knowing. And knowing is when you act from a very, very aligned place within you. It's not this like, I got to figure this out. It's like, it's actually like getting still, getting quiet, recognizing, accepting, okay, this isn't working out. What is next for me? And it takes quiet, it takes radical honesty and acceptance of what is. Because we often want to outrun it, right? You might outrun your behavior patterns. You might try to outrun what's happening to you through distraction. And I made that real easy on myself by taking away alcohol the last 8 months. I decided I was not going to drink. So not only did I couldn't move, I couldn't go work out, do my normal things. My business was going through this big shift. I'm new to a city, all these different things. I took away all the usual distractions that I had. So I could not outrun myself anymore. And I had to face the truth of my life that maybe I've been running from for quite some time, maybe even more than these 10 years, is that it's time to not force. It's time to develop a stronger relationship with the divine, one that is rooted in love and compassion towards myself and a resiliency and a deep knowing to trust my intuition. Now, I'd used my intuition my whole life. I use it in my business. I'm a channel, but it's different when you're channeling for other people than to apply it sometimes to your own life. And I would always get like the big kind of like knowings, but it's even the more subtle ones that are important to receive too. So now I just had this, a very huge epiphany that it's time to do things differently. And I've been working on it. So when you get to these points in your life when, you feel like the universe is telling you to stop, it's not to create more suffering. And I think what creates the suffering is we keep trying and we keep trying to do what we know because our logical linear mind is addicted to the past. It's like, well, if I do what I did in the past, it's going to work now. And it's like, no, it's not, because you're not meant to repeat the past. You're meant to step into a new future. You're meant to take all the healing and everything that you've been integrating and move towards a new vision of your life. So when life stops you in your tracks and you feel like you're going through the biggest death portal of your life, it's not because there isn't something beautiful waiting for you on the other side. It's because you are meant to let go of your ways of controlling, let go of the ways that you've been doing things and leave room and space. And that's why I think it got so bad for me in the sense of like with my physical body that I couldn't go do the things that I would normally do because even that became a distraction. And I'm not saying that working out is bad. None of these things, everything in moderation, right? But for working out for me was always my go-to. And when everything, it's almost like I felt like the slate was wiped clean of all the things that I would normally do. Then I was left with the stillness. So wherever you find yourself right now, whatever part of your life, and I want you to share in the comments, what part of your life feels like you're getting the palm from the universe, the stop. What is it trying to tell you? And if you can give yourself the grace to know that this is a redirection and that this is going to be this breakdown, this thing that's not working is going to lead to your breakthrough, you are going to feel so liberated. And then you will move through this time in your life with more ease. And you will see the pain that you have as an indication that things are changing. I know that sounds crazy, but the pain that you have, if you were to be with it instead of trying to resist it, just accept that you will move through this time sooner. And it's not about crossing a finish line. We know with healing work, it's never like that. But this is about getting to live your best life. and understanding that this is part of the process. So don't try to outrun yourself because you can't. You can't. I hope this helps. If you need deeper support, I have a couple different ways that you could work with me. I have a Patreon membership where I go in there every week and I'm doing live Q&As, and I share astro and channeled updates and all sorts of a guided subconscious meditation and all sorts of fun stuff, community. And then the second way to work with me is to either start with an intuitive healing session, which is an hour. We do that together, or to inquire about coaching, because the intuitive healing sessions are to provide information and healing for the now moment. But if you want to transform and shift your life, then it takes a little bit more time. And that's where I get to support you through whatever process you're in. This is very highly customized, bespoke um, mentorship. So reach out to me. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you guys soon.